As far as parents that are listening to this, either now or into the future, I know even me when I was first talking to you, I started to like go through things in my head as far as people I know or my son or my fiance's children and just things that I'm that kind of correlated that made sense. For those parents out there who might think that this is an issue, are there like a couple of hints that you can give us as far as some dead-ons as to your child probably is dyslexic if they have these couple of traits? Is there anything like that?
So I'll just kind of give you a couple of things. I don't know that there's any really like dead-ons that you'll
Yeah.
get, but like with my son, like we were getting the check marks at school, and I was asking, like, so be asking, like when you're getting the things at school, be asking. It just wasn't being communicated to me until they said hold him back. And so you as a parent, like you know your child best. We really saw a difference in my son, in who he was, his personality before school, and then in school, especially once he started getting to like into that second grade. So that was a red flag. And I will say that it might not be it might not, that red flag might not tell you that, might not end up that your kid's dyslexic, but you need to find out something, because there's something going on with your kid. If your kid's personality is changing in school, there's something, either the learning difference, maybe they're being bullied as they get older. There's all sorts of like depression, drug issues. Trust your gut when it comes to your kid. Like that's the number one thing as a parent, is trust your gut. Things that especially, I mentioned the thing like the heel highs, and it just like she didn't correct it. Like even when she was older and like it should be corrected, she embraced it and was like, they're heel highs. That's a red flag that like maybe there's something. With my son, when we would do reading at night, we would have to do the reading, and this was early on, like second grade, and we would be sounding out, the easy stuff they're sitting home from school that's like grade appropriate, and we're sounding out, like let's say we're sounding out the word and, right? So we painstakingly for 5 minutes sound out each letter, and then we try to put it all together, and like as we're trying to blend it all together, like what word is that? Like and and what's the word? And put it together faster. Like it was painstaking, and
Wow.
you'd finally be like, and I'd be like, good. So like, whew, we can move on to the next line, right? So we go through the next line. Like we get 2 lines down, we have the same word, A-N-D. He has no clue what it says, and I'm like, and this is before I knew. And so this is the kind of stuff that I say, this is how I felt like a parent that was terrible. And I really kind of beat myself up for a little bit that I was a bad parent and didn't guard my son's heart. I would say things like, okay, what did it say up here? And he would say, and? Okay. So if A and D says and here, what do you think it says down here? And in my exasperation and my exhaustion and my frustration, his poor little heart was like, I don't know. And like it made no sense to him. It made no sense to him that it was, but he was like, and so I was belittling him, and I did not realize it, and it legitimately did not make sense to him. He didn't know why it said and in the first place. He sure as heck didn't know if it said and down there, because remember when we took our B and we turned it around? I don't know. Is it still that? I don't know. And I was crushing my heart at home, and I had no idea. And so that's a red flag. Like if you sound out a word and 2 lines later you don't know what the same word is, that's a huge red flag. What I will say to parents is, I think education is important. I think school is important. But you need to define what success looks like for your family. And success for my family wasn't 3 hours of homework for a second grade kid.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I let the school system, and specifically my school, who wasn't wasn't meeting the needs of my kid, I let them define what success looked like for us as a family and for my kid. And I put my kid through a living hell for far too long because I wasn't standing up and I wasn't advocating or asking questions sooner than I did. And so, decide for yourself what success looks like for your family, and guard your kids, guard your kid's heart. And if there's problems and you're seeing differences in your kid, question that, seek out, resources. One of the things that when we finally pulled him out and we homeschooled him, he was in 4th grade. My daughter was a freshman, and we were driving out to Denver for Christmas. So it was like middle of the year, 4th grade year, the first homeschool year. And my kids were just playing in the back seat, it's a long, boring drive. And my daughter, she said, "Mom, thank you so much for giving me my brother back." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she was like, he's like himself again. Like, he plays with his toys and he just hasn't been himself and played like this in a long time. And it was like, oh, my heart. Like, she was right, because what we were putting him through in school, and not like, school's not bad. School should be good. And I think be able to do what it needs to do, right? Unfortunately for us, it didn't do that. And it was the best decision for us to homeschool him. But my kid started blossoming again once he was able to learn, because if we're not learning, we're dying. And he was being stifled, and he was wilting in his personality and his confidence and how he felt about himself. And so trust your gut when it comes to your kids. And if you don't have the answers, like, don't stop asking. It was my hairdresser who pointed me in the right direction.
Wow. Yeah. Don't stop asking. Exactly. Because if you wouldn't have been talking to her about it, then it would have been probably a little bit longer of a wait for you. 100%. So, so during this time from 4th grade on, I want to mention this because for a couple reasons, but one of the main reasons is I know a lot of times mothers who choose not to work outside the home have an option of doing a multi-level. And multi-levels a lot of times have a bad connotation around them. And I loved your story as far as, you had kind of dipped into it previously before any of this had happened, and it was a safety net for you. Can you kind of explain, first of all, what MLM you are with, and then how it kind of came to be that it was perfect for what you actually had planned going into the future without you even knowing it?
Yeah. So I'm an area manager with Arbonne International, and Arbonne is we're all about a holistic approach to the mind to body skin connection. So we do skincare, nutrition, cosmetics, all about healthy stuff for your body, right? Like, get your body healthy, and all things in life are a little bit better when you're healthy. But so I was introduced to Arbonne back when I owned my insurance agency, and I was immediately interested, but yet at the same time, kind of like, because what you said, like that stereotype, I was kind of like, there's a catch. Like, what's the catch, right? So I signed up as a consultant, and I was using their products. Their products transformed my skin, so I was thrilled about that. And there was like a circle of my friends who, like, they all knew about it. And then there were some other people in my world that, like, they didn't, because I kind of was like, I have this business, like my insurance business, and I'm doing this other business. And I just, I kind of thought, like, well, it's just for stay-at-home moms. It's for those people who want an extra $100, right? Like, it's not. And but I just had that, like, I had this tug in me that, like, I knew it was the right thing. I knew I needed to be a part of it. And what I loved most about it, and I think everybody should be at a network marketing company just for this reason alone. Network marketing companies, like, they are the bomb for teaching you to grow yourself. And when I said, if you're not growing, you're dying. Like, if you feel like you're in a place where you're stifled, or you're just not growing, or you don't feel like your life is fulfilled, find yourself a network marketing company that has products that you love and you can be excited about, because you will also find a community of people who lift you up and encourage you. And I just said this the other day in one of my social media things. My network marketing people, they're people who they pour water on my doubts and fears, and they pour gasoline on my dreams, right? Like, yeah, like they fuel you, right? So we all need people in our lives like that. But it was in my life, and I had clients because they saw the difference that it made in my skin and things like that. But it was just this thing that I kind of dabbled in. And when I left my insurance agency, because to homeschool my son, I left my insurance agency and I came home. I was really kind of overwhelmed with because I said, for me to stay home, my kids and I were not going to live, right? Like somebody's not going to make it. And then I told you what homework was like at my house when my son was in school. And my husband said to me, honey, do you think it's a wise idea for you to homeschool the kid? Because both of you are practically in tears before you go to bed from homework. How are you going to do homeschool? Right. So I was like, I don't know. But again, I just knew deep in my gut, it's what he needed. And I was determined to give him what he needed. So I was like, okay, if God calls you to it, I believe that he'll see you through it. And I just knew that he would provide a way and help me figure it out. And he did. And that affirmation from my daughter, when she said that Christmas, like, thanks for giving me my brother back. That was the affirmation that I needed, that I made the right decision and that he was blossoming and it was good. And so Arbonne was there. And so I was able to, make some extra money from that because of my, but I wasn't really working the business necessarily like a lot then, because I was busy trying to figure out homeschooling and all that stuff. And then with the training that I did for the, literacy intervention stuff, I got kids referred to me. And so I took on some extra kids that I tutored. I actually tutored them in the morning before they went to school and before I started school with my son, which also brought extra money. So it's just a lot of like provisional things that provided that really, it was the right decision. My son was thriving and I still had Arbonne and I still had this community of people that was just pouring into me. And it was vital too, that I had that group of people that was like, encouraging me to read, encouraging me to be better for myself. We should always advocate for ourselves anyway, right? But a lot of us don't. My Arbonne people were fueling me with that all along, which helped me in my journey with the homeschooling and with my son. And then when it was like, you know what, I need to stop doing the hobby thing with Arbonne. I need to do it for real. It can be just the $200, $300 a month that you want, or it can be a whole lot more, whatever you want it to be, without you. Because most people, if they would have done what I would have done, they would have had to pick up a side job at the local Pizza Hut or at the the Walmart. And not that those are bad jobs, but those jobs, you don't get to pick your hours. Someone else tells you when you have to be there. And network marketing, it allows me to do life on my terms. I get to set when I want to work. I get to pick who I work with. Sometimes you don't always like your coworkers when you're getting to pick them, but it's just been a huge blessing to me personally, to my family, and my kids. My kids, the dreams that my kids have for their futures and the growth mindset that my kids have because of being around our network marketing community, it's just astounding the difference that I see in them compared to their peers that are their same ages, and they're 21 and 26. So the difference that I see in them and some of their peers, it's just astronomical. And it's because of the Arbonne community that they got to be a part of.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I grew up with a mother who did network marketing for probably around maybe 7 years, probably from 32 to 40 or something. And she did really well. And I could totally remember as a child the difference in her. She did it on the side. It was a side hustle for her. She ran a daycare inside of her home, and then she did this on the side with her best friend. But she loved it. She absolutely loved her. It was a spiff off of Herbalife. It was called Aola back in the day. It doesn't exist anymore, but she took it all the way until the end. I don't even know what happened. I mean, I was so young. I mean, not so young, but I was younger, but I don't exactly remember why they closed down, but she did it until the end. She never signed up with another one after that, but it was so much fun. She always had girls over at the house, always laughing, having a good time. And it was weight loss back then. It was a weight loss company. And she was, she was definitely had an extra zip and zing to her that I definitely appreciated. I love women who are in MLMs when they're doing it correctly
Yeah.
and doing it lovingly and doing it with honor and grace. And I believe that you are 100% one of those people. So that's awesome. That's awesome. As far as getting back to dyslexia, in your personal opinion, what are some changes that you would like to see the schools kind of have with these children? What do you think?
Well, really just well, if we could all start to embrace the language differences, right? Like, it's not a disorder. You don't have, you're not just disabled. So changing our verbiage, changing the thinking of, sometimes when we put labels on kids, we think less than, or we think that is like a defining thing that says, well, they can never be, valedictorian, or they could never be, or they're just going to be a C student. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Like when you have high expectations of people and you expect excellence from people, they're much more likely to give you excellence. Just like what I said with the growth mindset of the kids who, yeah, you might not know this, but like, can you figure this out? Like, they're going to, when you expect the excellence of like the action and the work, the outcome becomes much better. Where when all we're looking at is the outcome, and they're kids, right? So they're growing into it. Do you know what grade you got on your stuff in second and third grade? But it's like, we want to like define kids by this, and we want to put the labels on them as far as their success in life and outcome, what it's going to be based on what they got on a spelling test or what they got on whatever assignment. And if we would, like, really start looking at the effort and like what they're putting into it, because some of those kids that are learning different, like, they're putting 110, 150% into it. And some of the kids who are just easily getting an A, they're not putting nothing into it, right? And so when you come to be 40 and you're at a job or a side hustle or you're building a business, it's not how quickly you can get an A on something. It's, do you have that grit inside of you to like push through and get it done? And when you're relying on a friend to be there for you, you don't care like how beautiful they can be when they come to the hospital to help you. Like, you care how quickly they get there, right? Like what they're going to drop and what they're going to do to make things happen for you. And so just start, like, what we value as a society sometimes needs to change. And these are pie in the sky things, right? Like, this isn't something that I can be like, hey, let's change this and here's a list. But these are just things that if we can start changing them in our homes, we can start changing and impacting like our communities and start having that impact in the school system. But as far as the school system itself, it really boils down to the training, so that those teachers, they recognize, hey, these are some red flags. These are things that they should be outgrown by this point in time. The way that they're changing up the words, that should be fixed. So it's not, maybe we need to refer them for some testing. Or like you said, well, why couldn't we just implement the right type of instruction in the classrooms and there'd be less kids that even needed the extra, right?
Totally. Yep.
That's those are some of my dreams.
Yes, I agree with all of that. So as far as the information that you hold, and anyone that's here listening right now who's having an aha moment, and you are their hairdresser right now, is there any way to contact you as far as if anyone has any questions? And then also on top of that, who should they be contacting? I mean, do you contact a counselor? How do you even do that?
Yeah. So, as far as getting in touch with me, I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram. I am butler.amyb. And on Facebook, I'm Amy Butler. There's a gazillion Amy Butlers. So probably if you search Amy Butler Arbonne, you'll get my Arbonne page, which I don't keep completely active because I'm mainly on my page. But if you send me a message there, I'll be able to see it, and then we can correspond that way. You can find my personal page. But it's Amy Butler. I kind of look like this in my picture. Yeah. Are you?
What?
Are you raising?
Yeah. Are you active on Instagram?
Yeah.
Okay. What is it? It's Butler.
It's butler.amyb. And I say I'm active on Instagram. If you look at my profile, I don't post on my profile all the time. I'm always posting in my stories, and people are messaging me all the time.
Okay, cool. So they can message you through Instagram.
Yeah.
To find you more easily. Okay, cool. And then what do people do? Who are they supposed to contact?
Yeah. So in your school system, if you be in touch with your teacher, and if you notice that there's things going on, sometimes you have to request testing for special education services for your kids. It's not always necessarily where they just do it. Sometimes you need to request it. If you wait for them to tell you, sometimes you could wait a year too long. So that's a first thing. And then if you have questions about dyslexia specifically, you can go to, I wrote it down. The International Dyslexia Association is dyslexiaida.org. And that is a wealth of information on dyslexia. And they'll also have places there for in your area where you can click on to find what are the resources for dyslexic needs in whatever state you live in. And then everyone should read the growth mindset book, right? I don't care if you're dyslexic or not, you need that. Books for kids. My son, he loved Hank Zipser. Hank Zipser is a children's series book. It's good for the 2nd to 4th, 5th grade, maybe. But if you have a kid who is dyslexic specifically, or is just learning different, or has an IEP in the school system, great book, especially for boys. I've had lots of girls like it too, but it's written by Henry Winkler. Henry Winkler is dyslexic, and it's written by him and Lynn Oliver. They have another a new series that they did it's like Hank something, but it's basically Henry Winkler is telling his childhood experiences as a child with dyslexia. And so the chapters, and this is really big for kids in 2nd and 3rd grade, sometimes a chapter is 1 page. And so when you let a kid be able to read, I read 3 chapters, that's hallelujah. They're so excited, right? So it's funny, and it's empowering too, because Hank Zipser, he's speaking from his experience. He's very relatable, and there's lots of stuff in there. Even at some point, Hank needs help in school, and he has to go to the resource teacher. And so he kind of talks about his experiences. So for kids who are going through that, and they maybe feel that they're stupid or they feel less than, it's a great series that they can relate to. And then there is another book, if you really just want to know a lot about dyslexia. It's called Overcoming Dyslexia. It's by Sally Shaywitz. And that has a section that's all about the neurological brain science. So if you really can geek out on that, it's got a section for you on that. But then it's also got a section that is about practical interventions and things that they've done, actual case studies for dyslexic kids and things like that. So if you're working with dyslexic kids, or you have a dyslexic kid and you just want to know all that you can know, that's a really good resource. For the average person, it might be a little too much, but it was one of my go-tos that I use kind of my handbook, guidebook before I would go into my IEP meetings.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love the wealth of knowledge. I'm going to do my best to put a lot of this in the description under YouTube, because I think that this is great. Do you do anything else as far as teaching?
So, no, not anymore. I used to tutor kids privately. And then I used to advocate for kids. So you can, like I said, when I would go into those IEP meetings, it's emotional when it's your kid and when you're in a place where you're finding a struggle. Having an advocate go with you is very helpful, because they're knowledgeable, they know the law, they know all the stuff, and they can sometimes speak without the shaky voice when you're getting really emotional. And
Right.
so it's really good sometimes to have an advocate. I used to do that. I've done it on occasion for some specific referrals that I've gotten. But for the most part, I don't do that anymore. But it is a really good resource sometimes to look for as an advocate to go in with you to an IEP meeting. But I could talk about this for days. It's something that greatly affected us for a long time. And my son has overcome. He graduated high school with college. Basically, I think he had 2 years of college, basically, or no, his first year of college done when he graduated high school. So you can overcome, you can be successful, like 100%.
And he's now 21 and thriving, right?
Yeah, he's 21, loving life, loving the 21-year-old, and working on starting his own business. He actually is an Arbonne consultant as well. So is my daughter. But yeah, that seven avenues of income, my kids are all about that.
Awesome. Awesome. Good. Yeah. Us too here at this house. I love that. Well, thank you so much. Do you have any closing words?
I just want to thank you because, like I told a couple people that, yeah, I'm doing this podcast thing. I'm being interviewed for a podcast. And I double checked a couple dyslexia fact things with one of my instructors that I had. And I was like, hey, I'm being interviewed for this podcast thing. Like, I just want to make sure my facts are right. And she was like, okay, first of all, how cool is that? Right. So thank you, Sabrina, because I'm just an everyday person. I'm just an everyday mom. And, like I told my husband and my dad, like, I'm going to be on this podcast. Like, what are you being on a podcast for? Right. Because, it's like, I'm an everyday person. Right. And so we like to downplay our stuff. Right.
Yeah.
But we all have a voice and we all have something that can benefit somebody else. Somebody else can benefit through our struggles. And so I just want to thank you for giving people a voice, because you've taken a lot of just ordinary people who, they're ordinary people, but they're also superheroes, right? And we're all a superhero to somebody. So thank you for giving me a place for my voice and all that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you for taking the time to be with me here today. Thank you so much for joining us here on Her Version. If you have an amazing story to share of struggle to triumph, be sure to reach out to me here or at herversion.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. Have an amazing day. Much love.